as well. Now, this is just one of two big stories that we're tracking today. Suzanne Leonard, over to you with the West story.
Yeah, East Coast, West Coast, soggy wind. One's deteriorating, Jacqueline. The other, well, is... I wouldn't say that we're out of the woods just yet for British Columbia. Conditions aren't actively deteriorating. They've kind of been their worst. Let's go out to the west. And this is putting pay to those record warm temperatures you had in Manitoba. So there's actually 3 areas of low pressure and lots of sunshine in Ontario. Fairly glorious conditions weather-wise. 16, 17, southern Manitoba. The hot spots really in the country right now, still here despite this low, but all things changing. Changeable weather. Jacqueline mentioned the tens of thousands of people that lost power, and as of late morning, those numbers were down to about 25,000. Rain, snow at elevation, and impressive amounts of rain, varying quite a bit from close to 30 millimeters West Van, 60 millimeters Comox, Port Alberni even more, and let's go west of Port Alberni. Well, thanks, Marty, for the video from Tuesday through Thursday, 50 to 80 millimeters. Friday, a little bit of a drier day. Find out what's next for your long-range forecast with your locals next. 3:15 Eastern. Good to see you. Developing stories. Soggy day in BC, and we're going to start with that. 16,000 or so customers still have no power, mainly on the lower mainland, Sunshine Coast, East Coast, the nor'easter. And of course, we have to start by acknowledging the tragic day in Ottawa. Unprecedented and chilling, and the downtown core and Parliament building still in lockdown at this hour. So very happy to have your company as you check in on your weather. On this Wednesday, 3 areas of low pressure across the country. It's all clear weather-wise in Ontario, south and north. The nor'easter, and Jacqueline Woodall is standing by with more on that. I'm Suzanne Leonard, part of the team here, bringing you the latest, bringing down the temperatures. And you can't help but miss that big low on the West Coast. We'll go there in just a second. Okay, no longer in the 20s, Regina, Edmonton, and Calgary, and nowhere near the 20s, Eastern Canada. Rain has begun, and rain, well, it's still continuing. Look at the radar here. It's not as impressive as it was earlier. Yes, that's snow mixing in at elevation. And I want you to see this, okay? Abbotsford, 6 millimeters. Port Alberni, 93 on Highway 4 and on the driveway there. There's another trough of low pressure swinging in for your Thursday. There's 50 to 80 millimeters of rain on the way. And really, as we take a look at the long-range forecast, Thursday into Friday into Saturday in particular, another strong low moving in. Speaking of strong lows, well, meteorologist Jacqueline, that's where you come in with the nor'easter.
That's right. From a hurricane right to a nor'easter. It's been a busy week for the East Coast and Canada. Thanks, Suzanne. So, yeah, that's how we get the conversation really rolling. Go to Suzanne Leonard now, who is standing by. Suzanne, lots to talk about on the West Coast as well.
Yeah, Jacqueline, what's your preference? Rain and wind or snow and wind?
I'm going to say snow and wind. Let's hope I get to track one of those puppies one day soon.
Well, let me take you to where we're getting some snow and wind right now. It is Wednesday. It's almost 12:30 Pacific as we fly up through BC and up to the territories. That's where the snow is right now. And on our West Coast, it is just about as soggy as on our East Coast. High stream flow advisories, Lynn Creek, Capilano, areas of concern. Another trough of low pressure moving in today. We'll get to your calm conditions in Ontario in a moment. Check your local forecast. You'll see a warming trend. A soggy trend, though, for BC. Plenty of rain. Port Alberni, 93 millimeters of rain. That's about that much, close to 4 inches, and it's not over yet. The worst of it with this first storm system is now over. Extreme gusts, Saturna, not far from Salt Spring, not far from Victoria. Van and Victoria no longer under wind warnings. Next big system, Friday night into Saturday, will continue with this and your locals coming up. Another look at your local forecast in a moment. Suzanne Leonard with the team and our developing stories. The BC storm knocking out power, our East Coast storm, and Jacqueline Woodall has the latest there. And of course, we want to acknowledge before we get into the weather how much we appreciate you taking your time on this unprecedented and tragic day for Canada. No question, as we all continue to watch what is happening, unfolding in Ottawa. Weather-wise, what is unfolding is this big sweep of cloud cover headed up towards Atlantic Canada. The rain's begun. McCreary, Manitoba, this cloud cover notwithstanding, is the current hot spot in the country. Has reached 19 or so degrees today, whereas it's minus 26 in Resolute, which is the coldest place in Canada so far today. And those are our current temperatures, whether you're joining us from sunny Ontario or still above seasonal Alberta, where conditions are calm now, but there could be a little snow in the foothills, places like Grand Prairie and maybe Jasper early tomorrow morning. Certainly, we are seeing colder air try to punch its way south, and snowfall in Yukon, among other things. Rainfall still showing up on the radar. Another 50 to 80 millimeters coming for the south. So the south coast taking a bit more of the brunt of the rain with this particular band of storms. We do often at this time of year see back-to-back storms. Tomorrow's unsettled. Friday is a bit of a break. Friday night into Saturday is the next powerful low. Powerful temperatures. That's a little bit of bragging rights. 18s and 20s. And we're going to take a look at the East Coast storm coming right up. You know, this nor'easter is pretty powerful in terms of the amount of rain it's going to be delivering. That's a snapshot of Thursday, and you'll see your current radar, your current local forecast coming up in just a couple of minutes. There's Jacqueline with the latest on the rain. It has begun.
It sure has, yeah, especially if you're in parts of New Brunswick. And West Coasters are pretty tough people when it comes to rainfall. You're talking about a big one.
It's a big storm in Jacqueline. High stream flow advisories, but in New Brunswick, St. John River, that's a lot of rain already, you mentioned.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And still lots on the radar to come. So as this pushes north, you know, we're going to see that heavy rain really pick up.
Yeah, both coasts, you know, it's a different scenario. On the west coast, we have system after system. On the east coast, this nor'easter moving in and basically stalling. Let's take a look at what's going on all across the country. Thunder and lightning in far northern Manitoba right now, and the hottest areas of the country are in the south. Won't last for long. That cold front's coming through. It's clear in Ontario's north and in most of the south as well, weather-wise. BC coast, rainfall in green, snow showing up in blue. Now the radar signals, of course, beams. The mountains tend to interfere with those, but at elevation and on into Grand Prairie and the northern foothills of Alberta, wouldn't be surprised to see a little bit of wet snow overnight tomorrow morning. It's been all rain around the south coast, lower mainland. Not just the rain, but the wind, and the far from Tofino, the southern Gulf Islands, and a trough of low pressure tomorrow, the next big storm into the weekend. Find out what's next for your part of the country with your local weather next. Coming up to 4 Eastern and 1 Pacific, and a look at the national forecast right now. Suzanne Leonard, Jacqueline Whittle, and our team. And we will have more on the BC storm that's knocked out power, the nor'easter storm on our east coast, and it's ramping up. And of course, Ottawa, a tragic day there, and it is an unprecedented day for Canada and deeply distressing, we know, to all of us. So for you and our audience checking in with the weather, we really appreciate you being here today. Weather-wise, Ontario's under clear skies, most of Quebec as well. Big ridge of high pressure, and then it's pretty easy, isn't it, to pick out 1, 2, 3 storms. Thunderstorms, thunder and lightning. Jacqueline talking about offshore or Gulf of Maine. She'll clarify which. Thunderstorms over here on the U.S. coast. I've seen some thunder and lightning to the northeast of Winnipeg, right about there, and then that orange cluster up to the northeast and moving back into Tofino. In fact, Robin, there's the radar for Tofino. We've got Port Alberni here. Port Alberni is also on Vancouver Island. At times when we get back-to-back storms, high stream flow advisories, Lynn Creek, Capilano, down the Fraser. Rainfall, additional amounts, 50 to 80 millimeters of rain still to come through Thursday. Bear in mind, it's winding down. Trough of low pressure tomorrow, next big storm Friday night onwards. Okay, we're going to shift gears a little bit here. We've got local forecast coming up. Jacqueline filling in the more calm details, but you've got the other big storm.
Yeah, I do. I'm going to bring Suzanne Leonard in to talk about the next storm on the west coast. It's a big one too. I mean, they're used to this kind of rainfall, but the wind gusts have been a big part of the story.
Yeah, nobody really, I guess, wants the storm track, Jacqueline. Down to 11,000, though, power outages, customers, from about 16,000 about an hour ago when I last updated you. So some good news there. If you just come back online in BC, well, a good day to you. It's just after 1 o'clock local time, just after 4 o'clock Eastern. Big ridge in the jet stream. Well, that's where the warm air is. We've got some thunderstorms. Shamattawa, northern Manitoba, and northern Ontario near Red Lake. But we jump to the west coast. That's our other really big stormy story. And the radar is still showing a lot of rain. In fact, we've got some rain footage here for you. And not too far away from this spot, Comox, 83-kilometer-an-hour winds. When's the next low coming in? Well, it's unsettled Thursday. The next big storm is Friday into Saturday. And then the remnants of Anna, that A pretty dynamic fall day with active weather, big storms actually on both coasts. So our developing stories, the BC storm, our East Coast nor'easter, and we'll have Chris Murphy and Rachel Schutzen joining the program very soon. Of course, we must start with acknowledgement of the tragic events unfolding in Ottawa, a very disturbing day for all Canadians. So we thank you for joining us, for taking a moment to find out about your weather. And we have colored in the cloud top so you can see exactly what's going on here. Manitoba's got some thunderstorms. McCreary, southern Manitoba, 19 degrees, still the current hot spot in the country. Jacqueline Whittle will be along in a moment. She'll be talking about the nor'easter. I want to break down this BC low for you. And the rain still coming down pretty steadily through the Okanagan as well as around the south coast. The south coast could see another 50 to 80 millimeters of rain. And yes, that is snow mixing in at elevation. I was just having a look, join our conversation on social media, just having a look at Lake Louise. Yep, they've got their avalanche forecasters out there surveying the slopes. No, nobody's skiing just yet, but it is coming. We'll say that. Thunderstorms could be embedded within this low on our east coast. West coast unsettled. The next big storm comes Friday night into Saturday. All right, we'll have more coming up. But right now, Jacqueline with the latest. Whoa, no rest on the east coast.
That's right. Yep, me included. I was doing something like this only a couple days ago, and that was chasing Hurricane Gonzalo. Suzanne, it's a big one on the west coast as well.
Yeah, it has been. You're talking about those winds, Jacqueline. We've had power outages on the West Coast. At one point, 80+ thousand customers, now down closer to 10,000 customers and continuing to drop. But this will be a changeable situation. Low pressure pushing inland. Low pressure, by the way, causing some thunderstorms and bringing in cooler air. Eastern prairies today. Rainfall, check out your latest radar on your local forecast in just a couple of minutes. It's rain in green, it's snow in blue, and we know there's been some snow at elevation in the Rockies today. Rainfall accumulations, some of the most impressive numbers, both wind and rain, have been on and around Vancouver Island. You saw Port Alberni there and Saturna Island just at the bottom of the screen here. So more coming up as we continue to track our East Coast nor'easter, our storming pattern for BC, our quieter weather for Ontario. We'll be right back. Active weather here in Canada. We thank you for joining us on this Wednesday. It's 4:30 Eastern. Night is coming tonight, but it's daylight still. How's that for a segue? Live TV. It happens. BC storm. It's just after 1:30 local time. About 10,000 customers. No power still. Predominantly Sunshine Coast and the lower mainland. No sunshine on the Sunshine Coast now. And we'll take a look at the nor'easter storm in detail. And of course, we want to acknowledge the fact that you're here on this extremely distressing day for Canada, where I know we're all very saddened but very proud of our first responders at the same time as events continue to unfold in our nation's capital. Stay strong, Canada. Here's a look at the weather. Low pressure in the east, big plume of moisture that's coming up from the south. Temperatures are still up in BC. Warmest places in the country right now are there. Not in the 20s today, but high teens. This doesn't look so bad on the radar. It's still raining. It's still pretty dreary. It's let up. I was just having a look at Tofino. There's some thunder and lightning offshore. Vancouver's still got some light showers around the lower mainland, but there's more coming through Thursday. It's another 50 to 80 millimeters on top of what you've had. And Jacqueline, this is a stormy pattern for BC. Not unusual this time of year, nor is this unusual.
Suzanne, what's the latest?
Well, we haven't got any rainfall warnings for the West Coast right now, Jacqueline, but we did have, and we will likely have again. What a dreary day it is. Meanwhile, across Western Canada, cooled off behind this low. Hottest weather in the country right now is here. There's a bubble of 16, 17, 19 degrees. 19 degrees, not any longer in BC. The rain and the snow here in blue, that's snow at elevation. It is winding down. It's a little less intense. The winds are less intense. Still checking on the power outages, about 10,000 customers altogether. The next big storm, though, is moving in Friday night, into Saturday. We'll have more coming up. Do stay with us as we track many. Suzanne Leonard and the team here, coming up to 2 Pacific on our developing stories. First off, the BC storm. Secondly, the nor'easter, supper time on Atlantic Canada. And of course, we do thank you so much for taking time for us today on this very shocking and very sad day for Canadians as we all monitor the situation in Ottawa. Monitoring the weather from coast to coast. Calm across the Great Lakes. Thunderstorms streaming up with the heat. Yeah, 17, 19 degrees. Northwestern Ontario and Manitoba. And then those distinct plumes of storms on our west coast. It's a storm track. On our east coast, it's a nor'easter. And we'll go east in just a moment. Another 50 to 80 millimeters of rain for parts of the lower mainland. And the wind gusts were certainly over 100 last night for some of the Gulf Islands. Jacqueline coming up while that nor'easter takes its sweet time leaving the east coast. We've got storm after storm for the west coast, so more power outages and the risk of flooding there as well. It sure is, Jacqueline, and it's cold in the north. Yellowknife sitting at 0 for most of the afternoon. So there it is, fall in Canada. Winter storms, winter conditions for some. We've got snowfall warnings in the far north. We've got this big ridge of high pressure pushing warming weather into northern Ontario. Southern Ontario, it's coming. BC coast, this is coming. One low after another. This large semi-permanent Aleutian low. So that's a feature that basically sits there all year long, but becomes more dominant in influencing the weather in fall. Port Alberni. And that's close to 100 millimeters of rain. I want to show you Vancouver Island. This is east of Port Alberni. Pretty nasty stuff. And as we take a look at the next system, unsettled tomorrow, bit of a break on Friday, believe it or not. Friday night into Saturday, the next low. And waiting in the wings, this contains some of the remnant energy of Hurricane Anna that clobbered parts of Hawaii. Here continuing, it would be only right to start with a thank you to you for taking a moment to check in with us. As Canadians, we are all affected by the extremely distressing and tragic series of events in Ottawa today. Taking a look at the weather map across North America. We know a lot of people are looking at Canada right now. We're looking at it strictly atmospherically at the moment. Big swirl, comma shape, mature and powerful. Not affecting really Newfoundland just yet. Then high pressure, then another low. That's plume of moisture. It's actually bringing in some of the heat from the south. And the BC coast, heat is not what's on our minds. It's the wind and the rain. Look at Port Alberni, close to 100 millimeters of rain, far less for Vancouver and Victoria. You are no longer under wind warnings, but the winds were potent overnight. As of 2 a.m., gusts near 80 for Vancouver and Victoria, over 80, Comox and Powell River. Saturna Island, not far from Salt Spring, not far from the ferry routes over to Tawasin or into Swartz Bay. My goodness, heavy rain continues through the forecast. Tomorrow a little lighter. Friday a bit of a break. Friday night into Saturday, the next potent low. And the remnants of what was Hurricane Anna that brought a lot of rain to Hawaii, that's approaching for late Monday into Tuesday. So there's a lot of active weather to talk about. National forecast, there's an overview for Thursday. It hasn't been a terrible day in Vancouver. We've had some thunder showers threatening Tofino and the west coast of Vancouver Island at times. Great to see you on this Wednesday. Thanks for making time with us on a very difficult and distressing day for Canadians monitoring what's going on in Ottawa. No 20-degree temperatures today. We're close to it, but Manitoba, northwestern Ontario, they've got their own. You've got your own low pressure system. Rainfall amounts have been very impressive around Port Alberni. There's more rain to come, and the reason for this, well, we're on the storm track on our west coast. The next low moves in for tomorrow. It's a trough of low pressure. Believe it or not, a bit of a break for Friday until Friday night, Saturday, the next big storm. We've got some chillier weather coming in the long range for parts of eastern Canada. We get milder in Ontario. We get showers for Saturday. We'll have more next. Active weather, taking a look at your national forecast. Great to see you. Developing stories, our west coast, one in many storms and many losing power. And our east coast storm, and Jacqueline Whittall will be along in a moment. Team coverage continues. And of course, we think today as well of Nathan Cirillo's family, the soldier from Hamilton, the tragic events unfolding in Ottawa, which have moved us all, and we are very thankful that you are here with us today watching the broadcast, getting up to date on the weather. And here it is. Big swirl, massive comma-shaped low. That's a mature storm system. That's our nor'easter. Quiet in the Great Lakes. Thundery and mild in parts of Manitoba, and that is an active storm pattern to be sure. Rainfall totals close to 100 millimeters in Port Alberni as of earlier this morning, and more to come, and the south coast bearing the brunt of these lows. Sometimes the storm tracks to the north. These lows are generally coming in further south. There's the Sunshine Coast, more for Sechelt. Squamish is one of a number of areas. Howe Sound, the lower mainland under high stream flow advisories. The wind has died down. The long-range forecast is quite active. Connect with us when it's safe to do so. You are our eyes and ears in the field. And weathernetwork.com, and be part of our weather exchange daily. Social media of your choice. Right now, let's take a look at what's happening on our west coast at 2:45 in the afternoon. It's great to have you with us. Big swirl of low pressure. Having a look at Tofino, there's some thunder and lightning, has been offshore at times today. Okay, yeah, we can get that in October. 19 degrees national hotspot, Deerwood, Manitoba, southwest of Winnipeg. That's 17. That's not so bad. Temperatures up and down across the country. Cold air in northern areas, east and west. Yellowknife 0. It's been there most of the afternoon. There's some snow at elevation in BC. That's the blue. There's the rain in green. Doesn't look too impressive, but another 80 millimeters, 50 to 80 across the south. High stream flow advisories include Howe Sound, Squamish, North Van. You know the prone areas. Now we'll take a look at what's happening coast to coast. Your personalized local forecast next, and we'll be right back. The Wednesday edition continues. Thanks so much for joining us. Suzanne Leonard, Jacqueline Whittle, and our team in the field. BC, thousands no power, stormy weather on our east coast, a nor'easter. And we've got Nate. No, we don't have Nate today. We've got Chris Murphy and Rachel Schutzen. And we are, of course, acknowledging the tragic and unprecedented events in Ottawa today. And our thoughts, our prayers, and our focus on that. And you as well coming in to join us for weather. And we certainly appreciate your time on this terrible day for Canada. Ottawa and Ontario and Quebec, clear skies. You know, big sweep of cloud cover on our east coast. And in Manitoba, it's been mild and thundery on our west coast. It has been thundery and windy. And boy, was it a drenching rain overnight and through the early morning hours. The rain's been a bit more scattered. Places like Lytton have had a good burst of heavy rain today. Good bursts of heavy rain as well for Canaan, Nova Scotia. And that's where we'll go next. A very somber, enlightening program as well. That's Storm Hunters. That's tonight at 7 and 10. It's our special programming Wednesdays in October, live streaming, of course, on our website as well. And we thank you for joining us on this rather somber, sobering, very troubling day for Canadians as we continue to monitor the story in Ottawa. And we thank you for joining us. Suzanne Leonard with the team here, having our daily weather conversation. And we shift gears to look at this evening. And we hope you can enjoy and take a moment for Storm Hunters tonight. Really, it's quite interesting when we travel into the heart of weather and how it affects us all. Our weather pattern here, pretty benign, 5, 7, 9 degrees this evening and dry. Great, fantastic. I don't know about you, but I've had not one, but 2 wet evening post-dinner walks this week. So I'm looking forward to a drier one. Overnight, 6 degrees. Normally our overnight or morning lows are about 4 at this time of year. So that's not too bad. Seasonal conditions, not soggy here. I'll show you where it has been very wet coming up in just a second. This nor'easter storm, oh my, stalling over the area. See that trough in the jet stream? That's helping to draw that low away from us, but keeping it parked in place Thursday, Friday, Saturday. I'll get to the milder story for us in a second. I want to show you Tofino moved in last night. We'll get back to BC in some of our national programming coming up, but I just wanted you to know that that's going on. And our showers come through Saturday, and what's going on with that is it will cool us down a bit on Sunday, but the winds start to come out of the south. So we are looking at a warming trend going into next week. How long will it last? Well, your local forecast is coming right up with that. Midland, Penetang, and Owen Sound. A couple of the great things going on. And looking at that, looks like a bit of a painting, doesn't it? Kleinberg, there we go. Kleinberg, the McMichael Gallery has their fall art sale this Saturday and Sunday. So those are a few of the events. Here is the weather, 6, 7, 9 degrees this evening, our forecast. And we particularly appreciate you checking in with us today when we are all so troubled and distressed by the situation in Ottawa, this unprecedented day in our Canadian history, that's for certain. As we take a look at the weather, broadening the scope a little bit, and we'll include Ottawa here. Weather-wise, all calm conditions, really south and north in our province. And as we look west, we'll broaden the focus just a little bit more. 14 in Winnipeg. That is mild. That's milder. That's warmer than a normal daytime high at this time of year. We've been talking about BC And there were quite a few power outages, less than 100,000, but about 75, I think it was, customers earlier today, mostly around the lower mainland. And it was a very windy and rainy and stormy night, and there is an alert in place for the risk of landslides. It is a safety measure to remind people about how high and fast river flows can be and how unstable ground conditions can be when we get this kind of a storm pattern. So it can happen. We've had our own rounds of flooding, haven't we, in southern Ontario, in Toronto in recent summers. 6 degrees for us overnight, 4 degrees for Barrie overnight. Let me just show you what's going on across the GTA for Thursday. And yeah, no high stream flow advisories here, all calm compared to southern BC that has that advisory in place. There's Friday. Oh, it gets even brighter. And you know what? Saturday, Sunday, Monday, getting even warmer. We've got the 60% chance of showers for us on Saturday, but this is pretty decent when you keep in mind that our normal high is about 12 degrees. And the normal highs for places like Winnipeg and Thompson, Manitoba, are much cooler than that. That was Tuesday. Today, the system is coming through, cooling them down. We won't get those showers. Find out more, your local weather. To see you, and we appreciate you taking some time for us on this tragic day for Canada with the events going on, of course, in Ottawa, and that story that we're all continuing to monitor. Taking a look at the weather so that we can get ourselves and our families prepared for the evening and the days ahead. 7 and 9 degrees, comfortable conditions weather-wise. Overnight tonight, these are near normal temperatures, maybe even just slightly above. And then, as we look at sunshine for tomorrow, that is a warming trend. As far as our weekend forecast is concerned, 13s, 14s, and we are seeing some impressive warming conditions on Monday and Tuesday. In fact, once we get rid of this front that's producing a 60% chance of showers for Toronto, not so much for Windsor, but it is going to bring us a shot of slightly cooler air with northerly winds behind it, and then that warm up going into next week. Even warmer, 18 degrees on Monday, and as we look to the southwest, well, you know where I'm going next, right? We may have a few spots hitting the 20s, so it might be our turn. It's been in the 20s in the prairies lately. Cloud top showing the current system cooling down the prairie provinces. Nor'easter storm on our east coast. That's something we're closely monitoring. It has moved in and it's going to stick around right until the start of the weekend. Lots of rain in the east and on our west coast. In between, Toronto, well, we'll break down your local forecast next. Well, thank you for joining us here at the Weather Network. Suzanne Leonard with the team. And Storm Hunters tonight tells you more about what was a historic and devastating tornado season. And of course, a deadly and very sad, tragic day in Ottawa. And as you take your attention away from that for just a moment, we'll take you through the GTA forecast, the Southern Ontario forecast, and tell you what's coming up weather-wise. All right. Conditions 6, 7, 5, 9 degrees, fairly comfortable this evening. Cloud cover. No, not a whole lot of it, actually. A bright day across southern and northern Ontario. Temperatures are in big contrast. We do have the winds generally light out of the north. In the north part of our province, they're out of the south, so that's helping to mitigate the temperatures, bring them up just a little bit after a sub-zero start today. And afternoon Thursday, we still see some showers coming our way, but staying well away, as it turns out. 13, 14, 14 degrees going into Saturday. Saturday, the chance of showers for Toronto, for Oshawa, for Hamilton, for Barrie. In Barrie, the big ski swap that the Canadian Ski Patrol is putting on. That's at the Bradford Greenhouses. And just outside Barrie, Hardwood Hills has the biggest cross-country swap in the province going on. So that's some important stuff as we think snow and look at the chance of showers. And then beyond Sunday, I'll just step out of the way if you happen to be traveling this coming weekend. That's what's happening across the country. Still very soggy in Atlantic Canada. Another powerful low for the west, and we're in between the west coast and the east coast. Well, the Great Lakes, big bodies of water, they can help produce some pretty powerful storms. Not coming up. The big story will be the warming trend. Warmer colors and temperatures hitting the mid-teens Monday into Tuesday. A little bit of a front cooling us down a touch on the weekend, but then temperatures rising to above average. October 22nd, thank you so much for joining us. An unprecedented and a very sad day for Canada, and we appreciate you taking the time from the Ottawa events, monitoring those, to taking a look at your weather. And here we go with Southern Ontario. Temperatures and showers on Tuesday and a colder but brighter day in the forecast. Guelph now. Guelph, about 3 this morning. And as we take a look at the overnight temperatures, which carries us into the morning lows, very similar conditions. We should be at this time of year around 4 in Toronto and around 2 in Ottawa. Clear skies and calm conditions, at least weather-wise. This is a snapshot of tomorrow morning, so I'm not seeing any bitter wind chills. And as we look at the long-range forecast, well, where should I begin? 17 degrees forecast for Tuesday. I see lots of 16s and 14s. Morning lows. As a gardener, I've been watching for signs of frost. Probably you have too. Garden hose still outside? Yes, that needs to be brought in, drained, of course, and the water mains shut off to the outside before we get into that deep freeze. But it's not in our imminent forecast. So 13s, 14s looking pretty good. How does that work weather-wise? Well, we're in the calmer part of the country right now. We have very strong areas of low pressure to our east and to our west. There's a sweep of cloud cover, a low headed our way. And in BC, massive storm system, just one after another. In Atlantic Canada, where my on-air co-worker Chris Murphy is, along with Rachel Schutzen, they're tracking this big nor'easter. And some of that cloud cover will try to drift back into eastern Ontario, certainly southern Quebec rain, Atlantic Canada rain. Friday, Saturday, remember Gonzalo whipped past Newfoundland just last weekend. And if you've been down to St. Stephen or St. Andrews for a summer holiday, beautiful spots there, some great golf courses and kayaking, either side of the Bay of Fundy, getting absolutely drenched. Over 100 millimeters possible. That's a visual on about 100 millimeters, 4 inches worth of rain. Saturday, well, we have a little bit of low pressure headed our way. Not the low that you just saw a moment ago, or 2 moments ago. Last moment, we were looking at the nor'easter. Off it goes, but it's still sitting there for Saturday. We get a few showers. We'll get a little cooler Sunday, but an overall warming trend as that jet stream is going up. Hope that makes sense. A little cooler, a little warmer. Where does that leave us for Monday? Around 15, 16 degrees, even a bit warmer for Tuesday. Well, why don't we take a more in-depth look at this warming trend? Breaking down your weather on this October the 22nd. It's very good to see you, and we appreciate you taking some time for us on this tragic day for Canada with the events going on, of course, in Ottawa, and that story that we're all continuing to monitor. Taking a look at the weather so that we can get ourselves and our families prepared for the evening and the days ahead. 7 and 9 degrees. Comfortable conditions weather-wise. Overnight tonight, these are near normal temperatures, maybe even just slightly above. And then, as we look at sunshine for tomorrow, that is a warming trend as far as our weekend forecast is concerned. 13s, 14s, and we are seeing some impressive warming conditions on Monday and Tuesday. In fact, once we get rid of this front that's producing a 60% chance of showers for Toronto, not so much for Windsor, but it is going to bring us a shot of slightly cooler air with northerly winds behind it, and then that warm up going into next week. Even warmer, 18 degrees on Monday. And as we look to the southwest, well, you know where I'm going next, right? We may have a few spots hitting the 20s, so it might be our turn. It's been in the 20s in the prairies lately. Cloud top showing the current system cooling down the prairie provinces. Nor'easter storm on our east coast. That's something we're closely monitoring. It has moved in, and it's going to stick around right until the start of the weekend. Lots of rain in the east and on our west coast. In between, Toronto, well, we'll break down your local forecast next.